My name is Lorraine Carter, and this isn't the life I planned. I'm 63 years old. I was supposed to be retired by now, maybe tending a little garden, watching game shows, and spoiling my grandkids on the weekends. Instead, I wake up every morning in a one-bedroom apartment with two little girls sleeping beside me. My granddaughters. Amari is 9. Zoe just turned 6. They're beautiful, and they're hurting. A year ago, their father, my only son, died in a car accident on his way home from work. 2 days after the funeral, their mother disappeared. No warning, no goodbye. Just gone. She left behind her kids and something else. A mountain of debt. I didn't understand it at first. Bills started showing up in my name. Collection agencies started calling. I thought it was a mistake, but it wasn't. She used my name, my social security. She took everything, and then she ran. And there I was. 63 years old, no job, no savings, 2 kids who had just lost everything, and a financial nightmare I never saw coming. I wanted to give up, I really did. But those little girls, they were looking at me, waiting for someone to fight for them, so I did. And what happened next? I never could have imagined. The last time I spoke to my son, it was a Thursday afternoon. I remember because I was folding laundry in the kitchen. Towels, mostly. The girls had been over the weekend before, so I had extra loads. My phone rang, and it was Jamal. He always called me around the same time after work. Said it helped him cool down before going home to the chaos of toys, snacks, and bedtime battles. That day, he sounded tired, not sad, just tired. I asked if he was eating right. He laughed and said, "Ma, don't start. I had a sandwich. I'm fine." I asked about Tanya. He went quiet for a second, just for a moment, then said everything was all right. I didn't push. I wish I had. He told me he loved me, that he was planning to bring the girls over next weekend, said he wanted to fix that leaky sink in my bathroom. I said, "Don't worry about it, just bring the girls. That's all I need." He said, "You got it, Ma." That was the last thing I ever heard from my son. 4 hours later, a state trooper knocked on my door. There had been a crash on I-94. A delivery truck swerved into oncoming traffic. Jamal didn't stand a chance. The room got quiet. I couldn't hear what the officer was saying. I remember just staring at his lips, but the words didn't make sense. I didn't cry right away. I just sat down. My baby was gone. And somewhere out there, 2 little girls were about to wake up and not know that everything in their world had just changed forever. The funeral was small. Jamal didn't like big crowds, so I guess it felt right. Just family, a few co-workers, a couple of neighbors who remembered him as a boy. Tanya stood beside me the whole time. She held Zoe in her arms while Amari clung to my hand, like it was the only thing keeping her from floating away. Tanya didn't cry, not once. She looked blank, like her face had shut down. I told myself it was just shock. People grieve different, but something didn't sit right. After we laid Jamal to rest, I invited everyone back to the house. Tanya stayed for 20 minutes, said she had a headache, needed to lie down. I told her to go home, rest, take the girls, but she shook her head. "No," she said. "They're already comfortable here. Let them stay the night." I didn't argue. The girls were already halfway asleep on the couch. I tucked them in and thought, tomorrow we'll figure it all out. Tomorrow never came. The next morning, I called Tanya. No answer. Afternoon, still nothing. Evening, voicemail. I started to worry. I drove to their apartment. The door was locked. I knocked, waited, knocked again. Then I looked through the window. Empty, everything, gone. Furniture, clothes, toys. Cleared out like they'd never lived there. I called the landlord. He said she had moved out a week earlier. Paid 1 month in cash, then disappeared. That's when I found the envelope on my doorstep. No stamp, just my name in her handwriting. Inside was a short note. "I'm sorry. I can't do this. I'm not strong like you. Please take care of them." That was it. No explanation, no forwarding address, no way to reach her. She was gone. And just like that. I was 63 years old, a widow, and now a mother again. Only this time, I didn't have a partner, I didn't have a plan. I just had two scared little girls, a house full of grief, and the weight of something I wasn't ready for. At first, I thought it was a mistake. A credit card bill came in the mail, addressed to me, but I'd never owned a card from that bank. I called customer service, told them it must have gone to the wrong person. They asked for the last 4 digits of my social. I gave it. There was silence. Then the woman on the phone said, "Well, Mom, this account is under your name, and it's over $6,000 past due." I felt my throat tighten. I hung up. A few days later, another envelope, then another. Personal loans, store credit, a payday advance, all of it in my name, some of it dating back over a year. I didn't understand. I'd never signed a single one of these things. Then I remembered, last year, around tax season, Tanya had asked to borrow my ID to verify a school form. I didn't think twice. She was family. Now I was realizing the truth. She hadn't just left. She'd used me. She'd taken out debt in my name. I went to the bank. I went to the police. I explained everything. But it was slow. I wasn't just grieving anymore. I was drowning. Every day the phone rang. Different numbers. Same message. "This is a collections call. Please hold." I started unplugging the phone at night. I didn't want the girls to hear it. They were already asking too many questions. "Grandma, why are you always tired? Why are you skipping dinner? Are we in trouble?" I told them everything was fine. I smiled through it. But every night, after they were asleep, I'd sit at the kitchen table and stare at those papers. Red ink, final notices, threats of legal action. I wasn't scared of losing my credit. I was scared of losing them. Because if things got worse, if I couldn't keep a roof over our heads, someone could come and take them away. I hadn't worked in almost 10 years. After my husband passed, I took a part-time job at a local nursing home just to keep busy. But after a few falls and a bad back, I stopped. I thought those days were behind me, but now I didn't have a choice. The debt collectors didn't care that I was grieving. The landlord didn't care that my son had died. Bills kept coming. The rent was late, and the fridge was getting emptier by the week. So I pulled out an old pair of sneakers and walked to the corner store. Asked the owner, Mr. Lewis, if he knew anyone hiring cash work under the table. He gave me a number for a woman who needed help cleaning houses. It wasn't steady, but it was something. I started scrubbing kitchens in neighborhoods I used to only drive through, cleaning toilets, washing other people's dishes, folding strangers' laundry. I came home sore, covered in bleach, and just prayed the girls wouldn't smell it on me. I stopped buying certain groceries. No more name brands, no snacks, just basics. Bread, milk, eggs, beans, rice. I made sure the girls ate first. I'd wait until they went to bed, then eat what was left, if there was anything left. Sometimes I told them I wasn't hungry. The truth was I was starving, not just for food, for sleep, for peace. For one single day, where I didn't feel like the ground was falling out from under me. At night I'd sit at the edge of the bed, rubbing the soles of my feet, just trying to breathe. And then I'd look at them. Amari, curled up like her daddy used to sleep, and Zoe clutching that old stuffed bear Jamal gave her on her 3rd birthday. And I'd remind myself, you're not allowed to fall apart. Not yet. Not with them watching. It came in a plain white envelope. No warning, no call. Just a letter slipped through the mail slot like any other bill. I almost didn't open it right away. I was too tired. But something about the way it was folded, no return address, just my name in thick black letters, made my chest tighten. I sat down at the kitchen table, Zoe coloring behind me on the floor, Imari watching cartoons on low volume. I opened it. Notice to vacate. Final warning. I had 14 days to leave. Rent was 3 months behind. The landlord had filed papers weeks ago. I don't remember dropping the letter, but I must have. I just sat there. My ears rang. My hands went cold. I felt like I was shrinking inside myself. I was 63 years old, and I was about to be homeless. I couldn't afford a deposit anywhere. I had no car, no backup, no family to lean on. And those girls, they trusted me. They thought I was strong. They thought I had the answers. But in that moment, I felt like a fraud. I got up and went into the bathroom, locked the door. I didn't scream. I didn't throw anything. I just crumbled. I sank to the floor and cried in silence. The kind of cry that comes from somewhere deep, where the grief has settled like stone. I pressed my hands over my mouth so they wouldn't hear me, but I must have taken too long, because I heard a knock. Grandma? Amari. Her voice was soft. Are we going to be okay? I didn't answer right away, because for the first time since all this started, I honestly didn't know. I didn't know where else to go. That Sunday I got the girls dressed and walked to St. Luke's Baptist Church, just a few blocks from the apartment. I hadn't been there in months. Not since Jamal's funeral. I couldn't bring myself to walk through those doors without him. But that morning I needed something. Maybe not God, at least not in the way I used to believe. I needed peace. I needed quiet. I needed to be around people who wouldn't ask me for anything. The service was already starting when we got there. We slipped into a pew near the back. Amari leaned her head against my shoulder. Zoe clutched my arm. I couldn't tell you what the sermon was about. I was too tired to listen, but the choir sang a hymn, soft and low. And for the first time in weeks, I closed my eyes and just breathed. After service, while the girls played with other kids, I stood by the coffee table, trying not to look lost. That's when Miss Ruthie came up to me. Ruthie Washington, about my age. Known her for years. We'd folded bulletins together back in the day. She looked me over gently. Didn't ask stupid questions. Just said, "Dee, you look like you need something warm and a reason to sit down." I nodded. She brought me into the church basement, where they were setting up for the weekly food pantry. Long tables lined with canned goods, bread, diapers, bags of rice. I wasn't the only one there. There were women with strollers, old men with walkers, teenagers holding cardboard boxes. I felt embarrassed at first, ashamed. Like walking down those stairs meant admitting I had failed. But then I saw a woman in scrubs, clearly just off a long shift, standing there collecting groceries for her kids. I saw a teenage boy helping his grandmother carry bags to the car, and I realized this wasn't failure. This was survival. Ruthie must have seen something in my face because she said, "You ain't got to explain nothing. You're not the only one fighting." I asked her if they needed any help, just something to keep me busy, and maybe distract me from everything I couldn't fix. She smiled and handed me an apron. That afternoon I handed out bags of flour and dented cans of green beans like it was the most important job in the world. And in a way, it was. For a few hours, I didn't feel like a woman falling apart. I felt like someone who still had something to give. That night, I brought home 2 full bags of food. The girls were thrilled. "Peanut butter," Zoe shouted. "We haven't had that in forever." I let them eat sandwiches on the floor while we watched cartoons, a little piece of normal in the middle of all that chaos. And when they went to bed, I sat at the kitchen table, hands still smelling like powdered milk and canned corn. And for the first time in weeks, I didn't cry. I still had no idea how we were going to survive. But I knew this. As long as I could wake up, put on my shoes, and walk down to that church basement, I wasn't done yet. Working at the church pantry gave me a rhythm again. Monday through Friday, I'd clean houses. Saturdays, I'd help at the pantry. Sundays, I'd sit in the back pew with the girls and try to keep my heart steady. But the bills didn't stop. The collectors got nastier. Letters started arriving with court threats. One day I got a notice I couldn't ignore. Intent to garnish wages. Wages I barely had. I took the letter to a woman named Marcia, who volunteered at the church and worked part-time at a local legal aid clinic. She looked it over and said, "You've been hit hard, Miss Lorraine, but there's something off here." She offered to help me dispute the charges. We pulled my credit report and went line by line, trying to match up accounts. That's when we found it. A property transfer document, filed months ago, with my name on it, my signature. It said I had sold my house, the house Jamal grew up in, for $5,000. I stared at the page like it was written in another language. I had never signed that paper. I had never sold anything. Marcia looked at me gently. This was forged. Tanya had done it. She had taken the deed to my house and sold it behind my back, probably to cover her own debts, probably long before Jamal died. That was why she disappeared. Not because she was scared, not because she was grieving, because she knew what she had done. It wasn't abandonment, it was fraud. It felt like being robbed by a ghost. I sat in that folding chair across from Marcia, gripping that piece of paper with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. All those months I had been blaming myself, thinking I wasn't strong enough, smart enough, fast enough. And the whole time, I'd been bleeding from wounds I couldn't even see. Marcia put a hand on mine. "This isn't your fault, and you're not alone. We're going to fight this, one piece at a time." I wanted to believe her, but all I could think was, what else did she take? What else haven't I found yet? Because trust, once it's broken like that, you start questioning everything. I hadn't thought of myself as a fighter. Survivors, yes. That's what women like me are taught to be. Survive, endure, hold it together. But fight? That was something I had to learn. After Marcia discovered the forged deed, she connected me with a pro bono attorney from the Legal Aid Society. His name was David Nwosu, young, sharp, patient, the kind of person who looked you in the eye and waited for you to breathe before explaining the next step. We filed a formal report for identity theft and real estate fraud. We submitted documents to dispute the debts Tanya had opened in my name. We sent letters, filled out affidavits, contacted the credit bureaus. One by one, inch by inch, we began pulling my name out of the mess she left behind. It was exhausting. Every form asked me to relive what had happened. Every phone call made me feel like I was on trial for a crime I didn't commit. I'd get off the phone and feel my chest tighten, like my own life was slipping further and further out of my hands. But I kept going, because now I had a reason. And it wasn't just survival, it was justice. It was reclaiming my name, and it was giving these girls a future that wasn't built on shame and silence. One day after church, I took Amari and Zoe to the park. It was the first warm day in a while, the kind of day where the sun feels like something holy. The girls ran around laughing, chasing each other across the grass. I sat on the bench and watched them, letting myself feel that moment, not just as a pause, but as a small win. Because we were still together, because we had made it one more day, and because I wasn't hiding anymore. I had told people what happened. I had said the words out loud. I was stolen from. She used me. But I'm still here. For the first time in a long time. I believed that was enough to start with. Progress doesn't come all at once. It comes in pieces. In small, quiet moments that most people wouldn't even notice. But when you've been drowning for months, even a breath feels like a miracle. The first win came in a thin envelope. Your dispute has been accepted. Account closed. Just one credit card, but it felt like a mountain had moved. Then came a phone call from the housing office. I had been approved for a public housing unit for seniors raising minors. A small place. 2 bedrooms, clean, safe, close to the school. We moved in with just 3 suitcases and a box of old toys, but to the girls, it felt like a castle. The first night there, I cooked rice and beans with a little shredded chicken, the good kind, not canned. We ate at the table, together, with light on. I remember Zoe saying, "Grandma, this place doesn't smell sad." I didn't even know what that meant at first, but I did. The apartment didn't carry the weight of grief. It was new. It was ours. The second win came at school. Emari, who had stopped talking to teachers, started raising her hand again. Zoe brought home a crayon drawing that said, "Me and Grandma safe now." I put it on the fridge with the only magnet we had. Not everything got better. I still had debt to fight. The case against Tanya was crawling through the legal system. I still worked long days, still clipped coupons, still felt the ache in my back every night, but I no longer felt like I was living underwater. I could breathe again. One day I stood in line at the grocery store and didn't have to check my balance 3 times before swiping my card. Another day, I laughed, not politely, not out of habit. I laughed from the gut. One of the girls had told a silly joke, and I couldn't hold it in, and I thought, this is what healing sounds like. Not thunder, not choir of angels, just a laugh, in a kitchen that smells like real food, surrounded by people who still believe in you, even after everything. It was a Tuesday morning, cloudy. I was sitting at the kitchen table, going through mail like I always did. Bill, flyer, bill. Then I saw a brown envelope. No logo, no color, just official looking. I opened it slowly. My eyes landed on the first line. Case resolved, final judgment entered. I kept reading, afraid to blink. The court had ruled in my favor. Tanya had been formally charged with multiple counts of fraud, including identity theft, forgery, and unlawful sale of property. The ruling cleared my name, wiped out most of the fraudulent debts, and granted me full permanent custody of Emari and Zoe. I didn't cry. I just sat there with that letter in my hand, like it was a passport to a new life, because in a way, it was. I had spent so long in survival mode, I forgot what it felt like to breathe without waiting for the floor to collapse. I still owed some things. Not everything could be erased, but the weight was lighter now, the past clearer. I called Marcia first. She screamed louder than I did. Then I went and picked the girls up early from school. Took them to the diner on 4th Street and let them order dessert first, because why not? That night, I sat on the front porch of our little apartment. The girls were inside, singing along to some show I didn't know the name of. And I looked out at the street and thought about how far we'd come. I thought about Jamal. I thought about the woman I used to be, scared, ashamed, alone, and the woman I had become, tired, yes, but standing, still standing. I folded the letter, tucked it in my Bible, and whispered, "We're okay now. You don't have to worry anymore."